All right, good morning, Liz and Rick. I cannot believe it's our final project already. Man, did the course go by quickly, but I think it couldn't be more critical and more crucial of a time for me as a new teacher, kind of learning how to create an amazing LMS. So to go ahead and start off my project, I'm going to go ahead and kind of review. I'm going to go ahead and attach to this video the rubric, and I typed into this rubric all the answers. So I'm not only giving a verbal response, but I'm also going to give a written dialogue and a response as well to each of the questions that you asked in this rubric. And so the first thing I kind of want to address is kind of going over how did these new additions to the website slash LMS add to my teaching in a virtual setting. And I cannot go on as how much it added to my LMS. I even had responses from my students saying thank you so much for the changes that you are making to the LMS. Things such as just the way that it looked, right? The digital layout, the incorporating of differentiation, looking at the different digital tools I was implementing within that. It made a huge impact not only on my students, but I noticed that other teachers were seeing what I was doing and started to implement the same things and creating a better virtual setting for their students. And I think it was critical to not only my students' development, but our development as teachers as we grow and try to provide the best education possible for our students. Moving on, so how do these new additional elements of digital pedagogical practice create instructional support systems for the students you work with? I think they were huge. The first is just the overall digital design helped my students navigate where to go and where to find information. The simplicity in the design, I think was a crucial role in helping my students kind of figure out, like, how do I navigate things? Also, the incorporation of instructional videos, I think, were critical in that process. Being able to have my students access information of me teaching at a later date was important, because then they didn't feel like during my instruction they had to quickly take notes and get through things. So that was a huge part. And then lastly, just the differentiation of how students were able to turn in work. I think that was huge from the two of the textbooks that I was reading from. It's just the opportunity to, okay, what best fits my students to turn in work. Some like to write, some like to do video, some like to create something physical to turn in because they're good artists, and so on and so forth. So just that opportunity to learn those types of things played a huge role in my students' support throughout this semester thus far. The next question: what might you change about this site and LMS with the knowledge you gleaned from the feedback you received from the midterm? Some of the things I was talking about is just more of, like, at first glance it may be a bit hard to understand and navigate it, but I learned that I need to make sure that it may be easy for me to understand, but I need to make it easy for my students to understand. And one of some of the feedback that I got was just on the overall layout, and I did make those modifications on how I did those things as far as providing specifically what assignments my students were doing for that week, and then providing resources on top of that they can access to help them complete their assignments or help them better understand the content that is being taught. And to go to the next question, the assessment for engagement and mastery. So one of the supports, or one of the digital tools that I thought helped in engagement, more specifically the cognitive engagement that you address in the rubric, is the use of Flipgrid. Many of my students prefer to do Flipgrid video responses because I think for them it's more personal and they can get their point across easier. And so many of them were highly engaged in the use of Flipgrid because they can add in filters and add in these extra things that kind of start that engagement process for them. And so Flipgrid played a huge role in their cognitive engagement to get them going on trying to fully understand and express what they really want me to understand and what they understand. So that Flipgrid for sure was a huge part of that. The next, you asked, must include at least one tool to access student mastery, and that's for sure the Hyperdoc. The use of the Hyperdoc and Google Docs to support my students, where I can provide that instant feedback, reviewing students' work and providing that instant feedback for them was huge. Also with the Hyperdoc, the layout, where it's structured, where students can go down, what's the challenge? What do they need to do? What's the reflection process? What is the turn-in process? That Hyperdoc played a huge role in my students' understanding of content, as well as that differentiation product. Moving on to the relational capacity, and I love this because I learned a lot in this last section, in this last module, in regards to relational capacity and the role that it plays with my students and how critical it is for their success in the classroom. And so some of the things that I did and that I kind of modified to make even better was the Get to Know You project, where students create a project in the beginning with the use of Google Docs or Adobe Spark or WeVideo. And they create a video or a presentation about themselves so students know them on a personal level. The second, and that I added on after reading this relational capacity module, was Flipgrid Check-Ins, where students would create a Flipgrid video every week, do a quick check-in. As such in regards like a journal, but a video journal where they let me know how are they doing. Is there anything that I can do to support them? Is there anything they would like me to know that I need to know? And I found out that this Flipgrid check-in was critical. It was huge. I mean, students were telling me things that I never thought they were going through, and it helped me best support them in ways that I never thought I could. And especially with everything that's happening with COVID, these Flipgrid check-ins are doing an amazing job. And I thank you both, Liz and Rick, for that. The next is differentiation. And you talked about what are at least two strategies for differentiation. The first is basically the UDL design, right? And I created that within my Hyperdoc, where students had opportunities to turn in their work in the manner in which they'd like. And more specifically, I can give you a detail, is my team sports unit, right? Which I just created based on what we were learning in class, and where students have an opportunity to turn in their work in the manner in which they would like. They have a presentation, as you can see. They can do a video recording, or they can do a physical handbook that they can create. And so this, based on this UDL design, it was huge, I think, for students. They have the opportunity to work together to turn in work. And so here, just using this incorporation of that UDL design was critical in doing that process. Now, the second strategy is strategic grouping. I incorporated it a lot to make sure that my students that needed support have that support from another peer in their classroom. And I found it to be highly successful, this strategic grouping with my students, not only virtually, but when my students do come in, strategic grouping is huge, because the students that are more advanced in particular areas are getting that challenge, and the students that need more of that support are getting that support because of the groups that they're in. And so strategic grouping, to answer that question, is a huge strategy in that process. And so I kind of just want to go and briefly kind of give you a visual, Liz and Rick, and some of the modifications that I made to improve my LMS. And I really want to thank you for everything that you have taught us and the two textbooks that you have provided for us. So the first is just kind of the setup. I added the assignments list where students can access the information of what's due and the due dates. And then just the visual structure where everything's broken down week by week and date. You have assignments, resources, so students know exactly how to navigate my LMS. I kind of showed you the Hyperdoc and incorporation of these into my lesson plans, where students have everything broken down for their projects in detail, and it's kind of one place, find all information. The next is the incorporation of Flipgrids. I've done all these Flipgrids and many more, where students kind of reflect, and as you can see, I get fun with it, where I put a guy with sunglasses or a lion on my face, and students absolutely love that. I also have the Get to Know You project here, where my students can create projects about themselves, and students absolutely love this because they responded to each other. Oh, you like this? So do I. Like, maybe we can get together and do something of this sort. So students absolutely loved this Get to Know You project. So I want to really, really thank you. I'm in the process of creating a nutrition plan, and here are some of the Google Docs that I'm creating for them to do, where I implement in here instructional videos that my students can access to kind of give them a better understanding of what I'm expecting in the assignment. And so I just want to thank you guys so much, since this is the last project. You have completely helped me become a better teacher. You've helped me make my LMS better than I ever thought I could. Being a new teacher, I didn't expect to kind of hop into this digital teaching world. And though it is difficult, this course made it better and made it easier to get through and to provide my students with the best possible education. And so I hope I answered every single one of the questions that you asked in this rubric. I will be attaching this document that I gave a written response to each one of your questions and each part of your rubric, so you get a good understanding of what I did to improve my LMS in my final project. So I thank you so much. I hope you have an outstanding winter break, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done. Take care, and I hope to see you soon.